Howdy, Scott in Colorado here. Good morning. I'm headed out to go rock climbing this morning with my friend Sean, who's a Marine. He's not active duty right now. He was injured from mortar fire. Morning, Scott in Colorado here. I'll tip my hat back a little bit. Oh, that sun is bright. It's a beautiful sunny day here in Colorado. It's Saturday morning. I'm headed out to get some exercise, but before I do that, I wanted to talk about a pretty dang serious topic. Yeah, this is going to be a little bit about police work, but this is pretty much about mental health. Don't turn this off. If you're having any kind of issues in your life, and you're probably in denial, many of us are and have been. I was for many, many years. I didn't know what the heck was wrong with me. I'm going to talk. I'm going to put my glasses on so I can read this. It sucks getting old. Getting old isn't for the young. It's hard. I want to talk about, okay, first off, I've been doing some police videos, talking about police work, telling police stories, and made lots of notes. I listed well over probably 150 stories involving police work. Blood and guts, many stories about blood and guts, which probably I won't share with you, but it brought back memories. I might share some of them with you. But in bringing to light some of these stories and recalling them or making notes, they reminded me of them. And I'm having problems because of it. I'm having problems sleeping, problems with pain, problems with recollections that I really don't want to bring back to the surface. And in doing this, some of my friends, YouTube friends, homesteading friends, friends of my son, I see that they are struggling with stress. I don't know exactly what the issues are, but I have found solutions that are real, that are effective, that are drug-free, and that can solve your insomnia and can treat it without medication. And so I am going to produce a series of videos because I want to get this out there immediately to tell people. I don't want other people to suffer as I have suffered. Nobody should have to do that. We need to end this. We need to find solutions. We need to fix the problem. The solution to our problems are not easy roads. But they are fixable. They take time, and you can have your life back. Stress, anxiety, PTSD, sleeplessness, and insomnia can be treated, and you can have a huge improvement of your life, and you can have your life back. All right, I'm going to look at my notes here. I'm going to talk about stress. I'm going to talk about depression. I'm going to talk about anxiety, panic disorders, all right? And I'm going to talk about PTSD. I suffer from what was diagnosed as severe PTSD. How can this be? I have never served in the U.S. military in my life. I was, however, I am a retired law enforcement officer. I remember sitting on my back porch in our new home. It was 2 or 3 years old. It was summertime. It was beautiful. I'd just come off a graveyard shift. It was my day off. And I was sitting on my back porch of this new home. Everything was great, I thought. I had a beautiful wife. Still have a beautiful wife. We've been married over 40 years. She's survived law enforcement. Not an easy thing to do. had 4 wonderful kids, young kids. I was sitting on the back porch of our new home, and I just started bawling. Guys, it's tough to admit this stuff, all right? It's hard for me to admit this on camera. We as Western men with our machismo have a hard time dealing with the reality that we are not perfect. I am not a perfect specimen of an American male, all right? I have physical problems. I am not perfect. I make mistakes. Get over it, guys, all right? None of us is perfect. And the sooner we realize that we have problems, we do have to go to the doctor. Oftentimes it's of no help. They are of no help. We need to stop. Also, we need to stop worshiping doctors in the West. Doctors are not gods. They are not omnipotent. They don't know everything, all right? You are your best physician. You know your body 1,000 times better than your doctor knows your body. How can he know you when he sits with you for 7 minutes after waiting 3 to 4 hours to see him? How is he going to know anything about you? Guys, you're cattle, and girls, you're cattle. I'm not talking to just guys, okay? I'm a guy, I'm from a guy's perspective, okay? But there's many, many ladies out there who are suffering from the same things that I'm suffering from, all right? You guys, everybody needs help. A doctor doesn't know you. You know your symptoms. It is so difficult to communicate things to a doctor who really isn't interested in treating you and making you better. He is interested, however, in pocketing the money that he's making from you, from your insurance company or whatever. All right? They do. This sounds a little bit bad, but they do need to fund themselves. They need to pay for their expensive home that they bought, and for that boat, and for that second home in Nantucket or wherever. All right? They've overextended themselves. They've got a huge amount of debt. The reality is they're human beings, all right? And they are imperfect. And the medical schools, well, becoming a doctor isn't, initially you want to just go out and help. They want to go out and help people. Yeah, that's their initial motivation. But after a while, they become jaded. And they are interested in getting you through the door and your cattle. And that's been my experience. I have had some wonderful physicians. I have a psychiatrist. I'm not actively seeing him anymore. He's released me. But he actually said 3 words to me on my first visit. And I had asked him a question. I don't even recall what the question was. But his answer was this: Scott, I don't know. And my mouth fell open. And I stopped him. I said, I have been waiting for years to hear those 3 magic words. I don't know, from a physician. I said, if I can hear that from a physician, I know that he can find out, that he's humble enough to recognize that he's not all-knowing, that he doesn't have all the answers, but he can help me find answers. Okay, this psychiatrist tried to give me medication, mirtazapine. I took it, made me feel terrible, all right? I think that was the name, if I recall correctly, that was the name of it. It was given to people for PTSD. It made me feel disconnected and everything else. It did not help at all. Fischer, Wallace, I'll tell you the answer right now, to depression, anxiety, insomnia, panic disorders, PTSD. It is rewiring your brain, rewriting the neurons in your brain. The solution is a brain. It's a neurostimulator. Okay, and you put it on. I'll show you later in another video. It's called a Fischer, F-I-S-C-H-E-R Wallace, W-A-L-L-A-C-E, Fischer Wallace device. All right, you can look it up on the internet. They've been on, I think it was Newsweek, on the cover of Newsweek magazine. There's a huge article about it. Still, very few people know about it. Very, very few doctors know about it. Look, what it does is it runs off of some AA batteries, I think it is, and You put one sponge electrode over here and another one over here, just right here by your ear, and it runs for 20 minutes automatically as a timer. You turn the dial, you set it to a setting of 2, and it sends a pulse. And somehow, they really don't know why or how it works, but it is effective, and it is extremely effective. It works for almost everyone. You run it for 20 minutes twice a day, in the morning when you wake up, and at night just before you go to bed. It does help you sleep. It started working. It's guaranteed. Has a 30-day money-back guarantee. Get a used unit, all right? They won't tell you that they have used units, all right? They're remanufactured. They will sell these to you for half price. Generally runs $800. If you're law enforcement, retired military, whatever, active military, retired law enforcement, first responder, they will give you $100 off right off the bat. It probably costs them $20 to have this thing made in China, all right? And they're selling it for $800. $7.99, I think, is the retail price. But you can get them from half price from Fischer, Wallace. Look them up. Try one of these units. They have a guarantee for 30 days, all right? It starts working inside 20 days. On the 18th day, I thought, oh my gosh, it's actually working. I'm sleeping better. I'm not having the nightmares, the night terrors, and so forth. All right, it works. All right, there's the solution. All right, I'm going to talk about insomnia, stress rashes. I used to get these stress rashes right here. Still get them when I'm under a lot of stress or in pain. Headaches, migraines. I didn't have true migraines. Apparently, they were stress headaches. But the symptoms are all the same. They feel exactly the same, but you treat them differently. Night terrors, blackouts. When you combine injury, stress, violence, and fear for your safety, and particularly in long term, these are precursors, and it sets you up for PTSD. No, I've never served in the military. Let me tell you a little bit about me, all right? I'm 62 years old, all right? I grew up, I don't like talking about this. I grew up in an abusive home. Don't jump to conclusions about who might have been the abuser. I'm not going to go into any detail about that. There's 6 of us children. When I was, my main means of dealing with this was to escape the home. I was the oldest son. I have an older sister. She's 2 years older than me. We were all abused. I won't go into any detail about that. When I was 19 years old, I went overseas, and I was sent to Ireland. I arrived in Belfast. It was during the Troubles. That's a war, and it was in a war-torn country. I saw people shot. I saw people bleeding. I saw people killed. I heard machine gun fire at night. There's a razor wire everywhere. There's soldiers everywhere. There are Saracen tanks, that's a French tanks, rolling up and down the streets. We would hear of bombings, sea bombings. We feared for our safety often. From there, I went back to college. I was served on Mountain Rescue, High Angle Rock Evacuation Team. I was involved in rescues of severely injured and dead persons. They were high up on cliffs, and I evacuated them after rock climbing up to them and pulled them off and got them to safety or to the morgue. From there, I worked in managed mountaineering shops. I'd worked in a scuba diving shop in high school and been a scuba diver. anyways, involved in mountaineering shops. I started out as pre-med and then changed my major. It was more than, well, changed my major, worked in the high angle rock evacuation team, and then at 26 years old, I became a law enforcement officer. Saw many deaths, gunshot wounds, suicides, people with heads gone, people dismembered. I've done a lot of jobs in my life. I worked on a beaver farm. Yeah, worked on a beaver farm where beaver were fed, cared for in pens along a mountain range. There was 5 of them along the mountain range, spread out. These beaver were finally, we pelted them and stretched their furs on hoops, and the furs were sold to the Hudson Bay Fur Company in Canada. Yeah, they still make beaver skin hats. They're sold to Europeans and all over the world, apparently. Done a lot of things, but I found out I had fired doctors had been prescribing medications and treating me. I have always been a type A personality, hard driver. All my brothers and sisters are high achievers, artists. Got a sister that was a geneticist, brother that was an artist, another sister was a concert pianist, another sister who owns 3 different businesses, an entrepreneur, very talented. I've always been a hard driver. I was diagnosed by a doctor and psychiatrist who told me that, number one, first off, that I was suffering from depression and treated me wrongly for that with long-term antidepressants. And then I was feeling anxiety and having panic attacks. They treated me with benzodiazepines, which are horrible. If you're on benzos, get off them. Titration is when you go up. You need to go off of them very, very slowly. You lose the ability to sleep. Your body no longer is able to produce the chemical that causes you to sleep. They do not understand, doctors, scientists do not understand sleep at all. There is no cure for sleeplessness and insomnia other than a Fischer Wallace device. Medication will screw you up. Okay, being on long-term antidepressants are going to screw you up. You will have a manic episode if you're on antidepressants for long-term. They're not meant to be used for more than 5 to 6 months. Otherwise, you will have a manic episode caused by being on long-term antidepressants. I was finally diagnosed as being bipolar, and I was treated as if I was bipolar for 12, 13 years. I feel like I lost 12 to 13 years of my life because I was on all these different psychotropic medications. I was being poisoned. None of them worked. They were always pushing, take more, take more. Well, I'm having a side effect. Oh, we'll take this. Okay, finally I was taking 15 different meds because everything gave me a side effect. And the med they gave me for the side effect gave me a side effect, so they gave me another. You have to realize that psychiatrists are given kickbacks by the drug companies who educated them. Medical schools are funded nowadays by the drug companies, all right? They don't teach nutrition. They don't teach about vitamin deficiency. They teach them to treat them mostly with drugs, right? If your doctor only has one tool and it's a hammer, he sees you as a nail, so he's going to use that hammer, all right? If a person only has one skill, okay, or one tool to use, he's going to use that because that's his only option, all right? Everything's set up to make money. Sorry, guys, that's the way it is. That's reality. If you think it's otherwise, guys, you're living in a bubble, right? It's not reality. I'm going to read to you just a few things. This is a test, all right? B, I'm not a flower, all right? If you are re-experiencing symptoms, memories, and images of a traumatic event that may intrude into your minds, into the minds of those with PTSD, or they occur suddenly or without an obvious cause, all right, there's a problem. These are often accompanied by intense emotions, like grief or guilt, fear, anger. Sometimes the memory can be so vivid as to think that you're reliving it. I would go bicycling, all right, to relieve stress. I've always bicycled. Or running, or walking, or hiking, or any activity, drive someplace. And a thought would come back to me, and I would relive that experience. I would bike for 25, 30 minutes, being in a bad place, reliving some kind of police experience, where a child was hurt, or a person had killed themselves, or all these suicides that I've been to where people didn't have a head anymore. So put a rifle underneath their chin or in their mouth, high-powered rifle, and you don't have a head left. There's nothing left. And I would be gone in my mind. And 25 minutes later, I'd look around, realize, what am I thinking about? I shouldn't be thinking about this. I'd look around, and I didn't even know where I was anymore. I'd go, what happened? Where have I been for the last 25 minutes? All right, and this would happen over and over several times a day. If you're having nightmares or night terrors, if you're sleepwalking or waking up fighting in your sleep, if you're having, again, unwanted daytime memories, images, thoughts, daydreams, flashbacks, feeling like you're reliving the traumatic event. If you're having physical pain, linked to the feeling or bodily states that are associated with the traumatic event of when you were injured. Let's see, panic attacks, phobias. If you're having avoidance symptoms, okay, if you're avoiding anyone or anything that reminds you of the traumatic event. When I retired, I don't want to have anything to do with law enforcement anymore. Anything that reminded me, I couldn't watch police shows on TV. There's some pretty funny ones. I couldn't watch like Hill Street Blues was on a while after I'd been a cop. That was the big show everybody was watching. I couldn't watch anything like that. You have physical or emotional reactions to things that remind you of the traumatic events. You isolate yourself. You have a dread of social interaction, right? You have anxiety in crowds or when you're in traffic. You have despair, depression, sadness, emptiness, loneliness, feeling. You have an inability to trust other people. You no longer trust anyone. If you're very reluctant to talk about a traumatic event. If you lack interest in your employment or your past hobbies, the things that you used to love to do, you no longer have an interest in them. In your relationships, if you used to have close relationships with your friends or your spouse, your girlfriend, whatever, your friends, your family, your parents, loved ones, and these things kind of go flat. If you feel emotionally numb or dead inside, if you have suicidal thoughts, yeah, I had them. More than once, I've stuck a gun to my head, looked down the barrel of the gun, and looked at that bullet, right down the barrel, pointing at me. Could never do it. But thoughts come into your head that are completely off the charts. This is the result of being on these medications. That's why I was having these thoughts. It's because I was on long-term antidepressants. They can kill you. Feeling fatigued all the time, just tired, sleeping too long. Wanting to sleep all the time, all right? And then it turns into insomnia. You neglect your personal care. You don't want to brush your teeth anymore. You don't want to floss your teeth anymore. You say, I'm just too tired to even take a shower. You ever heard the expression, I've said it to my wife, I'm too tired to get ready for bed. I just want to lay down and sleep. All right. You neglect your nutrition. You neglect physical exercise. You have a short fuse, okay? Arousal symptoms. You have a short fuse. You're hypervigilant, all right? I used to listen when I was a child for the abuser to walk down the hallway. It scared me to death to hear those footsteps. You're always on edge, always on guard, always in condition orange, all right? You're easily startled, always on guard. You react to loud noises, you're jumpy. You might have substance abuse. I've never used caffeine. Well, I have used caffeine. I would use it when I was a law enforcement officer. I'd found that I couldn't stay awake on graveyard shift because it changes every month for a while there, and I couldn't stay awake. So I would get, okay, I won't mention the brand, but I'd get a brand that had a high caffeine content, even though I didn't like the flavor of it, just to stay awake. That's a hook, all right? And then when I was off duty, I would go to the convenience store, and I would end up going for that drink, even though I was wide awake and I didn't need it to stay awake. I would go for that drink, even though I didn't like the taste of it. All right? That's what caffeine will do to you. Cut the caffeine out of your life. No tea, no coffee, no caffeinated beverages. You don't need sugar water. You don't need coffee, a stimulant. Okay? You want to wake up, splash some cold water in your face, and go get some exercise. All right? Do it naturally. Eat something. All right, get moving. You have an inability to trust anyone. I think I already mentioned that one. Okay, sorry, we were talking about physical symptoms. You have substance abuse, drugs, alcohol, food. You have slow thinking, decreased cognitive ability. You have trouble concentrating. Of course, insomnia, night sweats. All right, I've had them lately just because I've been talking about reliving police stories and sharing them. I've had night sweats the last week and had trouble sleeping because I need to reuse my Fischer Wallace device. You have accelerated heart rate. Your heart is always pounding, or arrhythmias, where your heart isn't a consistent beat. All right, it accelerates, slows down. Heart palpitations. That's what they're called for no good reason. You question your faith. You feel abandoned by God, or you feel like angry at God. Why would you feel that way? You have a fear of becoming violent. You might have some road rage, all right? Might provoke a fight, all right? Homicidal thoughts. I've never wanted to hurt someone else, but you might want to. Homicidal thoughts include hurting yourself. Homicide is killing of a human being. A suicide is a homicide. Anniversary reactions. You become anxious when you recall a certain event that happened a certain time of year. Maybe you saw a death around Christmas or a suicide. We used to have suicides all the time around Christmas. If you're an adrenaline junkie, yeah, I'm an adrenaline junkie. Have been my whole life. You're never more alive than in a firefight, a fight for your life. All right, you're never more alive. You're never more alive than when you're out mountaineering, or ice climbing, or skiing a bowl way high in the mountains. You're never more alive than in a huge storm in the wintertime, a blizzard, and you're fighting for your life. You're never more alive than that. Yeah, I am an adrenaline junkie. You might be involved in self-mutilation, cutting yourself, or you might have an excessive amount of tattoos. This is a symptom as well. I got dogs barking at my neighbors. Okay, this is getting too long. I will perhaps talk about some of these other things later on and things that I've suffered with. I hope this has been helpful. Get online. This is a thing that I was reading. I got online. There's a whole bunch of PTSD tests. I never thought that I could have PTSD because I'd never served actively in the military. My dad, he had PTSD. He fought the Nazis in World War II. Yeah, he had it. He didn't know he had it. he knew there was something wrong. He would never talk about his experience, very, very rarely. But anyways, never thought I had PTSD until I got fired all my psychiatrists. I think it was my 6th or 7th psychiatrist. I told them I had already done my research on my own. Didn't suspect I had PTSD. I just thought all the doctors were wrong, and I didn't believe I was bipolar. And he said, no, you've never been bipolar. You had a manic episode once because you're on long-term antidepressants. And so you were misdiagnosed. And then doctors just go. They hear one doctor gives you a diagnosis of this, and they just go along with it. It's easy, it's fast, get you through the door, get your money here, take some meds, thanks, bye. Okay? They really don't care about your long term. Most of them do not. Very few do, because they don't have time to care. All right? It's too much effort. It's emotionally draining for them as well as it is for police officers. You're dealing with so many people. Yeah, I do have in some ways, pessimistic or jaded attitude towards life. I do not believe that everybody's out there to help me or to help you. Not everyone out there cares about you. No, bad things happen in this world. The world is not a nice place, but you can live and be in a nice place in here, all right? And because you create an environment that is safer, and that is more controlled. Here's another controlled. We'll talk about that. I've always been very controlling. A person with PTSD has to control their environment because this is key. I should have mentioned this early. If you're a big controller, okay, it's a good symptom, okay, that you may be suffering from PTSD because you've lived your life for so long when it was completely out of your own control. So you've got to control your environment. You've got to control, the house has to be clean. It's got to be vacuumed. It's got to be straight. It's got to be orderly. And then from this, you try to control others in your life. You try to control your children. You're too heavy-handed with your children. You're always on them. Oh, clean this up. Do this, do that, all right? Rather than be more relaxed, okay? Let them learn, all right? You have to have it right now. You're too controlling of your wife or your girlfriend or whatever, all right? I was too controlling. I still am to this day, and I have to learn to back off. And when I get too controlling, I realize, hey, that's your PTSD. That's why you act that way. And my wife has had to research this as well and realize that, hey, Scott acts this way, okay, because of his PTSD. And she has to cut me some slack. I can't fix it overnight, all right? You fix it one way, just a little bit at a time. And once you realize what your problem is and why you act the way you act, all right, you can start getting a handle on it and say, well, wait a minute, I'm being a little bit too much. I'm sorry. I'm being controlling. I'm trying to control my environment. I'm sorry. You can't control other people. You ought not control other people. They have their own things to deal with. Anyways, this is getting too long. Thanks.